Seeing someone move on laughing, living, it hurts. Not because one wishes them harm, but because something inside still burns, something that hasn't been extinguished. Each moment of the other's happiness exposes a void that cannot be ignored. One might try to hide it, pretend it doesn't matter, but the truth slips away. It has been confessed. Every time that joy overflows, a tightness grows in the chest, a longing that consumes. It wasn't supposed to be this way, but it is. God sees this pain. He knows that something remains unresolved, trapped between words that were never spoken. And this wound will not heal until the truth is faced. Sooner or later, the conversation that was avoided will have to happen. And when that moment arrives, will it be possible to hear what was never said? This topic is avoided. Time passes, and everything remains the same, at least on the surface. But there is a silence that weighs heavy. Averted gazes, a name that quickly appears and disappears from a conversation. A thought that insists on returning when one thinks everything should have already been moved past. Life didn't stop. Things moved on. But something was left behind, and that absence is unsettling. There are moments when one tries to ignore it, distract themselves, fill their days with noise so that thoughts don't creep into the mind. But it only takes a detail, a memory, a photo that appears out of nowhere, a song playing in the background, for everything to come rushing back. The reality is this: there is a void. It's not something that can be resolved alone, because it wasn't something that started alone. There is another part to this. There is another person carrying this same weight, trying to cope in a different way, yet feeling the same absence. The question is, until when? Until when will one pretend like nothing happened? Until when will one avoid a name, a memory, a feeling? Because, like it or not, it's there. The absence is there, the longing is there. And what if it were the other way around? What if the laughter that hurts was your own? What if the one who moved on was the other? Would the wound be the same, what was never said? There are words that were never spoken. Maybe out of pride, maybe out of fear, maybe because the moment never seemed right. But now each of those words weighs heavily. What would have been different if the truth had been told earlier? If there had been the courage to say what was truly felt? If instead of hiding, pulling away, pretending, there had been a moment of vulnerability? Because the truth is this: there is always a moment when everything could have changed. There is always an instant when one could have held a hand, insisted a little longer, listened with more patience, understood better. But that moment has passed. Now, what remains is a silent regret, a pain that is not shared with anyone but is present in every detail of life, a shadow of something that could have been but wasn't. But is there still time? The inevitable confrontation, running away from this, is no longer an option. One can try to avoid it, one can look away, one can pretend that nothing else matters, but that encounter will happen. Because life has a strange way of bringing things back into the fold. What is unresolved does not disappear, it returns. And it comes back in the most unexpected way. One day, without warning, the eyes will meet. It could be on any street, in a casual conversation, in a message that arrives out of the blue. Something will happen. And in that instant, there will be no more escape. The heart will race. The mind will want to flee. But will it be too late to pretend that nothing matters anymore? And when that moment comes, will there be courage to face what's been left behind? Will it be possible to say what was never said? Will it be too late to try to make things right? Or will everything finally make sense? There are encounters that can't be avoided. No matter how hard you try to take another path, no matter how much you avoid certain places, certain people, certain memories, what's been left behind has its own force, a gravity that pulls you back even when you think you've gone too far. And when that moment arrives, there will be no more disguises. Life won't ask if you're ready. It won't give you time to rehearse your responses. It will be sudden, without warning. Her shared glance amid the noise of the world, a second of recognition, a jolt that brings back everything that seemed buried. Your heart will race, time will slow down. And then, a choice. Pretend that nothing happened or confront what was left behind. The weight of the years time doesn't erase, it merely layers everything with dust. What was once strong, intense, deep doesn't disappear with the passing days. It just gets hidden beneath the routine, the new stories, the commitments that fill the empty spaces. But it takes just an instant for everything to be revealed once more, clear and vivid as if nothing had changed. What still lives behind this silence? Has everything truly been forgotten or merely swallowed by time? Because there are things the heart won't let be erased. There are moments that insist on surviving in memory, no matter how hard you try to uproot them. And the truth is, on some level, you're still waiting for that encounter. Not because you want to go back, but because there are unanswered questions. There are words that need to be spoken. There are wounds that need to be healed. What needs to be said? The truth has never been spoken. There has always been pride, always been fear, always been the feeling that it was too late to turn back. But it was never too late. It was always a lack of courage. And now, with everything laid before your eyes again, with the past colliding with the present, will there finally be space for the truth? It's not about apologies. It's not about trying to rewrite history. It's about liberation. It's about looking into each other's eyes and admitting what was felt. It's about owning up to the mistakes, the failures, the wrong choices. It's about understanding that no matter what happened, it was real, there was love, there was pain. There was something that marked us forever. And pretending it never existed would be the greatest lie of all. The moment of truth. And then finally it happens. The gaze that locks, the breath that falters, the chill down your spine stemming from a past that still resonates. The words don't come immediately. There's a moment of silence, a weight in the air, a tension that cannot be ignored. What to say? How to start? How to fit years of absence into a single sentence? Maybe just a hi is enough. Maybe a hesitant smile, a silent acknowledgement of everything left behind will suffice. Or perhaps it takes courage to go further, to ask what was never asked, to admit what was never admitted. Because in the end, what truly matters isn't whether everything can be fixed, it's whether everything can be understood. The aftermath. Regardless of the answer, something changes. Something is relieved. Something finally finds peace, because a past that remains unaddressed becomes a ghost. But a past that is faced can finally rest. And after this day, after this conversation, after this gaze, maybe each smile will no longer be an open wound. Maybe it will simply be a reminder that everything happened exactly as it should have. And then, for the first time in a long while, the heart can move on without carrying the weight of everything that was never said. It's not possible to say that everything gets resolved all at once. Some pains don't completely disappear, they merely stop bleeding. The wound heals, but the scar remains. The next day the world continues on its rhythm. The same people, the same streets, the same chores. But something inside has changed. A weight has been lifted. A barrier has fallen. Something that seemed impossible to face has finally been brought to light. And even though the emptiness still exists, it no longer suffocates in the same way. The silence doesn't weigh as heavily anymore. Life begins to find a new flow, without the need to carry so many unanswered questions. Because now there is a period, the memories that remain. There will still be moments when a memory will surface unbidden. A song, a scent, a rainy day that makes it feel like time has turned back. There will still be instances when thoughts will drift and wonder, what if it had been different? But it's not about changing the past. It's not about rewriting history. It's about accepting that some people come into our lives to stay and others to teach us something before they leave. And deep down, we cannot deny that it was real. Every smile, every tear, every moment of happiness and pain. Everything was true. And recognizing this is what allows us to move forward without bitterness, without resentment, without the need to run away from ourselves. The freedom to move on. From this moment on, the steps feel lighter, the mind is clearer, the heart, though marked, is no longer bound to what could have been. The wounds that once felt unbearable now form part of a lesson learned, not as a burden, but as a reminder that what was lived had its value. And so, for the first time in a long while, it is possible to look ahead without fear. There are no more invisible chains holding us to the past. There are no more stifled words. Now, each smile is no longer a wound for someone. Now each smile can simply be what it was always meant to be, a sincere reflection of someone who has found peace. Before, silence was a burden. It was the weight of unspoken words, unfinished stories, and questions that never found answers. Now, silence has a different meaning. It doesn't scream, it doesn't suffocate, it doesn't haunt. It is simply a calm space between what has passed and what is yet to come. There are still memories, of course. They arise at the most unexpected moments, but they don't hurt in the same way anymore. They are just fragments of a time that held significance, that shaped who one is today, but no longer has the power to bind. Because now there is something greater, an understanding. The understanding that not everything needs a perfect ending. Some stories finish without one realizing. Others, even without a conclusion, fulfill their purpose. And in the end, it's not about forgetting, it never was. It's about learning to remember without pain. The new beginning. Life has its own rhythm. While some things come to an end, others begin to emerge. New paths appear, new people enter, new stories start. It's strange to realize that the heart, once so accustomed to the weight of the past, now allows itself to look toward the future with more lightness. This doesn't mean everything is resolved. Some scars remain, some longings persist. But there is no longer despair, no longer the need to turn back time. The present finally feels sufficient. The past is no longer a prison. And what is to come, Massam, is no longer so frightening, the certainty of what has been lived. Because in the end, what really matters is not how it ended, but what was felt. There was love, there was commitment, there were moments that can never be erased. And if one day it becomes necessary to remember this story, let it be with gratitude. Not because everything went right, but because in some way everything made sense. Now moving forward is no longer a burden. Now it is a choice, and that choice has been made. The end of one cycle, the beginning of another, and this time without looking back. There's a moment when the body hesitates. An unconscious reflex, a last remnant of the past trying to hold on to what no longer exists. But this time, there's no turning back. There's no reason to return. The feet start to move, first with a bit of caution, then with more confidence. The heart still feels but no longer fears. The shadows that once seemed insurmountable are now just distant memories. Time goes on, and it is necessary to move with it. The past doesn't disappear, but it no longer holds you back. Longing doesn't fade, but it no longer suffocates. What was once a knot in the chest is now just a loose thread, a story that no longer demands closure. And then, for the first time, breathing is easy. There's no longer a need to prove anything, not to yourself, not to anyone. What was. What will come, and the present finally is enough. Invisible marks. Not everything fades away. Some things are etched into the skin, others remain hidden in the soul. But now these marks no longer weigh heavily. They are reminders of what shaped who you are today. They are scars that tell a story not of weakness, but of overcoming. The past cannot be changed, but it can be redefined. What was once a burden is now a lesson learned. Every mistake made, every word swallowed, every silence that screamed louder than any goodbye, everything was part of a process. Everything had a purpose. And now, with this awareness, peace finally finds space to exist. The moment of liberation. Life goes on. The seasons change. The days follow their course, and everything that once seemed impossible to overcome now feels like part of another existence. There's no longer a need to avoid places, songs, or conversations. There's no more fear of facing the past. Because the past no longer holds power over the present, what was felt was real, what was lost mattered. But what is built from here on, that is what truly matters. Now each smile no longer carries pain. Now every step is taken without hesitation. Now moving forward is a reality. And this time, without more chains, without more doubts, without unnecessary burdens. Freedom has finally arrived, and it has come to stay. The last glance back. The past no longer holds me. The heart still feels, but it no longer clings. What was remains where it should. Now, every step is a conscious choice, free from the weight of what can no longer be changed. There was pain, there was learning, there was a time when moving on seemed impossible. But time teaches, and today it's clear. What has passed does not define us, it only shapes us. No more need to avoid memories. No more fear of bumping into old history. Life doesn't wait, and the present demands presence. Now smiling is freedom, moving forward is natural, and looking ahead is the only option. If this message resonated with you, leave a comment. I choose to move forward. Give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and share this message. Someone might need to read this today.